Welcome back to the archives. Wow, you're really gung-ho about this, aren't you? 2 volumes in and already back for the 3rd. Just give me a moment. Here we are, the Condensed History of Equestria, Volume 3, Descent into Chaos. I kept it on hold for you as requested. You want me to review it for you again? Well, this is a surprise. I figured you'd be tired of my monologuing by now. But if you don't mind it so much, I suppose I can keep summarizing things for you. So, shall we take a look? Volume 3 begins immediately following the resolution of the war with Saudi Arabia. Equestria herself suffered a devastating blow to her confidence as a nation. It would be almost 4 decades before they recovered enough from the war to even consider venturing out into the world again. Instead, they chose to focus on relations with their closest neighbors, with whom they've had contact with since even before the days of Equestria's founding, and at one point had fallen under the dominion of Arching Thunder the Great, the Kingdom of Griffania. The Griffins originally fell under Pegasus domination during the days before Equestria's founding. They were a primitive society that routinely engaged in brief conflicts with the Pegasi until the expansion of the legions dominated their airspace. Then, during the aftermath of the Three-Way War, the Griffins seized the opportunity to break away and form their own nation, establishing the Republic of Griffania. They would not establish a royal line for many decades. With the forming of Equestria, however, both young nations saw the opportunity to be gained in an alliance. Because of their years serving with the Pegasus legions, the Griffins had adopted many cultural aspects of pony life, and while relations were initially somewhat tense between the two, they eventually found a balance that worked well for both. But what cemented the relationship was the unearthing of Griffania's long-lost history. Before their domination by the Pegasi, Griffania had been a nation of scattered peoples, their entire society built around survival. Much like with the pony tribes of Equestria, the Griffins had suffered from a disaster that had forced them to flee their ancestral homeland and left them starving and desperate. It had reduced them to their most basic needs, but those survivors had brought with them mementos of the past. Antiques telling of an advanced and powerful society, dating even earlier than the Alicorn Kingdom. They offered these relics to Equestrian scholars in hopes of divulging the truth, for they had lost the means to understand them. As it turned out, however, these were but fragments of a larger whole. Scattered throughout Equestria, Griffania, and many other nations, there are sites of ancient ruins that predate even the Alicorn Kingdom. They are remnants of an ancient and powerful civilization, one that is believed to have spanned into the unknown territories of the world. It was made up of multiple species, griffins and dragons among them, and ruled by another kind we've only ever seen depicted on the ruin walls. But this grand utopia was destroyed by an internal force, and its many people scattered, reduced to their most primitive cultures. The Griffins call it the long-lost kingdom of Eridu, and while it is hinted that perhaps the Alicorns were also once a part of this lost civilization, the Griffins only possessed a handful of relics, and not enough could be divulged from them to tell very much. And the ruins that have been found relating to Eridu would not be discovered until closer to modern times. Nevertheless, the intriguing relics possessed by the Griffins gave the two young nations something to bond over. Discussions about history sparked many debates, and before long, the subject of creating a multicultural university for study was broached. Both Griffania and Equestria saw the benefits of such a place, and joined hooves and claws in a cooperative effort to bring it about, establishing the very first Equestrian Institute of Higher Learning. It was during this time that an unusual ship sailed into Equestria's western coast, badly damaged from a squall. The sailors manning the ship were as unique as their vessel, being a species never before encountered in all of Equestria's known history. They were Keating, an equine species of the Orient with cloven hooves, tufted tails, and antler-like horns capable of magic, much like unicorns. The ponies of Equestria naturally took it upon themselves to nurse the Kirin survivors back to health, all while learning how to communicate with them. What the Kirin told them was that they had come from far across the sea, in a distant land beyond even the great vortex known as Eternity's Crossing. It was a land of high peaks and beautiful cherry trees, with leadership divided amongst a council of 5 rulers. The Kirin had been on an errand for the rulers, but they had sailed too far out from the coast and were swept up into the endless storms of the vortex. The distance was simply too great. Not even Pegasi could fly beyond Eternity's Crossing, and their powers of weather manipulation didn't work on the storm. It seemed their Kirin friends would never be able to return home. But the Kirin's arrival had restored the spirit of adventure to Equestria's explorers, and they inspired a whole new era of naval development. For the sake of their new friends, they had to build a ship that could survive Eternity's Crossing and safely return them home. Of course, it took a very long time, and the first attempts were unsuccessful. But the Kirin had been moved by the Equestrians' attempts to help them, and so gave their efforts as well. The very last vessel to make the attempt was a construction of equestrian ingenuity and Kirin wisdom. It bore the name of Mikomi, the Kirin word for hope, and was manned by a crew of both races, as the Kirin themselves were determined to go home. The Mikomis sailed into Eternity's Crossing and vanished. The venture eventually presumed to have failed. Nothing more would be heard of the Mikomi for several decades. Nevertheless, Equestria continued her advancements in naval ingenuity, and the promise of lands lying beyond the sea was a great incentive. Unfortunately, no pony was ever able to successfully make it through Eternity's Crossing. But this age saw the emergence of several great explorers, such as Astrolabe and Sunstone. Their discoveries allowed Equestria to reach a new level of technology, and brought about the emergence of science. Studies of alchemy, chemistry, and botany began in various labs all over Equestria. But few ponies were as devoted to the development of science as Galileo. Galileo was a noble-born unicorn with extensive interest in foreign magics, alchemy, and pre-Alicorn history. He possessed many of Star Swirl's tomes, some of which are right here in the archives. Galileo is best known for his contribution to astronomy, and is often referred to as the stud of modern science. But Galileo's fascination with Star Swirl's research continued into his later years, and drove him to seek out ancient Alicorn relics. He was convinced that the Alicorns had left a sealed temple somewhere in Equestria, similar to the one in Saddle Arabia, and that it must similarly contain an immense power. He searched throughout his entire life, venturing into the forgotten corners of Equestria, and on one such venture, he disappeared. He came back almost a year later, but he was changed. Whatever it was that Galileo had found had driven him tragically mad, and he spent the remainder of his days cared for in his home. And while it was unknown at the time, Galileo's return and insane ramblings were a portent of things to come. There's a great deal of argument among historians about the Age of Chaos. Before Discord's reemergence, many didn't even believe it had happened. Records from that time period are few, and most are complete gibberish. At first, it was thought that a sort of plague had hit Equestria, resulting in widespread madness, much as what had happened to Galileo. The reality is that Discord's magic had influenced everything, and even one's hoof-written words were unreliable. Even to this day, the spells binding relics of this era, even documents, are so strong that they defy our modern archaeological spells. As a result, we have no clear definition of exactly how long the Age of Chaos lasted. It could have been a year, or 100 years, or maybe even longer. Much of what's written now is simply speculation. It might be that we'll never know what really happened. It's theorized that Galileo was Discord's first victim, and that he had in fact found and somehow unleashed the spirit of disharmony. At first, his actions were small pranks. Rivers of fruit punch, dandelions the size of apple trees. Perhaps he was testing his powers, and once he was certain of his strength, Discord unleashed his full might. One of the few incidents in which there's at least some documented confirmation is Discord's appearance before the High Pony Council. The council had gathered to discuss the terrible events sweeping across Equestria, desperate to find a cause or solution. In the middle of their arguments, Discord himself appeared, presenting his power for all to see. He fired the council by literally launching them from the building as if they'd been fireworks. Discord never openly declared himself ruler, and his reasons for focusing on Equestria in particular are unfathomable. But no pony was safe from his tricks. The citizens became isolated and aggressive with each other. Equestria was no longer a peaceful place to live. But while we may not know the details of Discord's rule, we do know how it came to an end. In the midst of Discord's reign, the sun and moon suddenly ceased to obey his wild power. And with the appearance of two alicorn mares wielding a great and ancient magic, Discord was defeated and sealed in stone. The ponies of Equestria approached the two mares with such gratitude that they pleaded for them to become their rulers. And while they were at first hesitant, seeing that they were in desperate need of leadership after the loss of their council, the alicorns agreed. And from that day forward, Princess Celestia and Princess Luna have ruled over us. The beginning of their diarchy is also used as the marker for the era known as the Celestial Renaissance. That concludes Volume 3 of the Condensed History of Equestria. I hope you enjoyed it. You know, you're not the only one who's been asking about Equestria's history. Lately, it seems the archives are getting quite a few requests for historical texts. If this keeps up, you might just find yourself competing with some pony to check out the next book. Well, in any case, I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, and happy reading! Hey, equestrian history buffs. This is your Overmare with a friendly little reminder that I need you to vote on the next section of equestrian history to be covered on the show. Follow the links in the description below to an episode entitled Overmare's Office, and use the comment section to post your vote. When the next episode airs on the 16th of next month, I'll have made my decision and started scripting out the next set. Bear in mind, folks, I'm not going to do anything on Discord and the Princesses until after Season 4 at the very least. As far as everything else goes, the Condensed History of Equestria has another 3 episodes to go, with zebras, dragons, and then some. Well, in the meantime, keep looking forward to it. Don't forget to vote. Now get to it! Your Overmare commends it.